Leadership has never been more important than right now, both politically and managerially and indeed clinically, than the situation the National Health Service faces right now. And what leaders have got to do is face into the future, first of all, rather than resisting it, understand the changes that are coming down the track, an ageing society with a baby boomer generation that frankly won't tolerate a system of care that tells it what to do. We will want to tell it what to do. And we will want to live out the end of our lives cared for probably in our own homes by people that we love and that love us and with budgets that we control. And the NHS better get used to that, because actually patient empowerment is a coming thing. The most exciting things I see in healthcare anywhere in the world now are on mobile phones. And they're all about the ability of a patient with a chronic disease to better manage and take part in their own care rather than simply being a passive recipient of it. And what we've got to think as leaders is, how do we get from where we are today, which is a system that all too often denies patients both power and responsibility, to a system where patients have far more power and are far more responsible for their own health. Technology will drive that, citizens will drive that, and I hope that the NHS will embrace it and lead it.
One really difficult thing they have to do is to integrate the social care and health budgets. And that probably means some shifting of, even now, the straightened health budget towards social care. Because the paradox is that if you don't have adequate social care, the public will go to the hospitals. Already there are crowds at the A&E clinics because there isn't an adequate social care system in the local community. So the funny thing is, I think personally what's happened is the sequencing has gone a bit wrong, with people having seen the hospitals beginning to change before the social care system is up to and running to the point where it can actually look after people being discharged from hospitals early or not going to hospitals at all. That's a great shame, because what it means is that people flood into A&E because they cannot find in their own local community the services that they need, and it would actually be less expensive and almost certainly personally better tailored in the local community than they are in a hospital. Geriatric ward's a perfect example. Worst place to end up in a geriatric ward when you're in your last few years of life. Best place to end up a hospice. But at the moment, it's still the case that people end up in geriatric wards because there aren't enough supports for the hospitals to offer a much more humane service.
Well, I think they have to make the case for change. The ideal of the NHS, the idea around which it was created, that's to say that health and care should be available to those who need support without regard to their ability to pay. That's something that needs to be an enduring ideal and unchanging. But we need to change the structures that we use to deliver that ideal so that they're much, much better attuned to the needs of today's patients, which are who by and large are living longer. The challenge is to enable them to enjoy not just a longer life, but a healthier and more enjoyable life. And we need to ensure that the different bits of the health and care system are more patient-focused, and there's less of a feeling that we're treating conditions. We need to be treating patients to enable them to get greater value out of their extended life.
For the NHS to survive, it really needs to integrate between hospitals and community. But everybody agrees to that. It's very difficult to know how you get there, because at the moment the NHS is under such pressure that all of the beds are up to nearly 100% occupancy. So you can't suddenly say, we'll shut down the beds and then miraculously a community service will develop. The community service has been cut by this government's austerity by 20%. There are many fewer, for instance, diabetic nurses, specialist nurses, who can look after people in the community and see they don't need to go into hospital. There is less of everything. And in this atmosphere, to try and restructure, not exactly restructure, but to put your emphasis into reinvest into the community will be very hard. I think you will have to go back to the voters and say, we need to put more money into this, and maybe you have a hypothecated tax of some sort. And I think voters would rather pay a higher tax that they knew was going to keep the NHS on its feet than to see it disappear beneath them and end up with something like an Americanized system where anybody who could afford it would feel they needed to take up private insurance.
I think they need to do three things. One is, I think it's necessary to repeal the 2012 Health and Social Care Act, which is committed essentially to privatising the health service, and to restore the duty of the Secretary of State, not merely to promote, but to provide a comprehensive health care. Secondly, I think they ought to be responsible for catalysing an honest debate about how we can ensure we get the most value for money out of the health service, and how we address the problems that will always exceed our capacity to solve those problems. And I think thirdly, we need to ask our politicians to be honest about the financial consequences of offering a comprehensive health service. And I think if they have that debate openly and honestly, they will be surprised how more people are willing, perhaps, to pay higher taxes in order to support a health service, not only for the sake of their own health, but out of a sense of justice for the health of their fellow citizens.